Good afternoon. My name is Robin Wood. I'm Vice President of the Bowen Association of Australia, and I'm standing under this wonderful magnolia tree here at 100 Autumn Street, Geelong West. This is situated in Victoria, Australia. The date is actually the 7th of October and the year is 1999. This is a very special place in history, in Bowen history, because this is where the late Thomas Ambrose Bowen actually practiced in those early stages of the development of the therapy that we know has brought so much comfort and relief to people worldwide. My parents owned a property about 25 kilometres from here, and certainly Mr. Bowen was very much part of our household. He treated my family, he treated my horses, show horses, and he also treated many thousands of Victorians and Australians in the time that he practiced. Today's a special day because Reen Horwood, his secretary and business manager, if you like, is now 91 years old, and she shares with us quite a few memories, things that need to be recollected for posterity. She worked with Mr. Bowen for about 25 years, and obviously in that time came to know the man and the work very, very well indeed. We're privileged also to have with us Ozzie and Elaine Wrench, who actually taught the work and took the work worldwide, as you know. So I'd like you to join with me, come inside, and we'll have a chat with Reen. Now, Reen, thank you very much for spending some time with us today. I know you gave up a birthday party to do this, so that's a very special thing to do. You were born in New Zealand?
Yes, Tokomara, New Zealand.
Okay, and when did you come out? How old were you?
14.
14, and any brothers and sisters? We need to know all this.
Yes, had one brother. Unfortunately, I've lost Roy. I've still got a sister, 99, and I've got another one up in Benalla that's 88.
88. Well, that's really quite an achievement, isn't it?
I think she'll be 89 this year. She's 3 years younger than me.
Okay. Do you recall, Reen, what sporting groups Tom Bowen was actually involved with?
The only thing that I can remember that he never did in sport was wrestling. Every other sport was ours. We used to go to Stawell. He used to do gift runners for the trainers from Ballarat, and the trainers from Stawell. We did all the Bellarine footballers, and a lot of the Geelong district footballers. And towards the end we used to do the Geelong boys.
Wonderful.
He was just interested in everything, and then towards the end when he was sick, he got interested in racing.
Getting back to the clinic, did Mr. Bowen organise his own cards, or was that left to receptionists?
No, the receptionist always got the cards out, and they were always brought into Tom. But he always filled them in and then handed them to me to take back to give to the girls.
And I'm right in saying that you worked with him for about 25 years, is that correct?
I think it must have been about then, because I was married in 56, 57 my husband died, and that was the year that I met Tom.
Did you honestly think that you were working with a genius at the time?
Oh, I knew I was.
You knew you were?
He had already got me back. I was a hairdresser, and the act of giving up because I'd had a fall and could not do, well, it was some of the work. I used to have to put my customers' heads on the back of a chair, and I was thinking of having to give up. And that's how I met him. He was a first aid man up at the cement works, and my husband, Stan, asked him, would he come down and have a look at his wife?
How wonderful.
He walked into that kitchen, and we were just having a bit of tea on the back, and I remember the tin was on the table. That's why I always remember how I met Tom, with the biscuits in it, and we were having a coffee. he sat down to have a coffee with us, but he didn't want a biscuit, but I happened to pick it up with the wrong hand and dropped it and spilled his coffee and mine. And that was my introduction to Tom Bowen.
Wow, isn't that amazing?
He only took one look at my shoulder and said, your husband tells me that you think you might have had a slight stroke a couple of months ago. That was what Dr. Dorothy Parker had told me. But he said, when did you have the fall? I'd had the fall the Sunday before I had the stroke on the shoulder.
I'm
And
sure
I was
that's
back
just
at hairdressing. And I think that's why my husband said to me when he was dying, he knew he was dying, we were waiting for the doctor, "Hun, I want you to promise you'll always look after Tom." He said, if anything ever happens to me, he said, he's got wonderful hands and he's going to be a clever man. And he knew the circumstances of Tom and I, our paths had crossed when we were younger. And after all these years we'd met again. And my husband's last words to me, I didn't even say goodbye to him because I was out making a cup of tea for the doctor. But his last words to me were, if anything ever happens to me, hun, promise me you'll stick to Tom.
Well, that's
Well,
very inspirational. You certainly did, didn't you? Yes.
It was hard at times and very hard towards the end. But we're still here.
Wonderful. Do you recall how and why Ozzy was actually asked to document and teach the work?
Tom just took a fancy to him, and he had the right fingers, evidently, because dozens and dozens went through our hands, and I could never understand why Tom, I'd say, so-and-so not coming today. No, he hasn't got the right fingers. That'd be it, wouldn't it, Sue? She'll tell you.
Well, Rain, thank you very much for sharing these moments with us. It's been absolutely
he just
wonderful.
had those wonderful fingers.
Those Bowen's hands.
And the eyes. As Gillian will tell you later about the babies, he could walk in, and Mrs. Bowen has told me that she used to get embarrassed when he'd walk down the street with him. He could tell her when a woman was pregnant.
How do you think he knew that?
I don't know, but I think I've worked out how he worked out the sex of babies. It's through the eye.
Through the eye.
Because each eye, one side is male if you're teaching, and the other side's female.
Well, I hope you've all enjoyed listening to Rain. I think it's been a very special time with her, and I'd like to thank you very much, Rain.
Thank you, Robin, for knowing you again after all these years.
Thank you.
It must be 30 years since I've seen you.
Exactly, and perhaps a few. Thanks, Rain. I'm standing beside Gillian Patterson, and I'd like to introduce you to her. She was actually a receptionist with Tom Bowen for approximately 2 years?
About 2 years, yes.
Now, Gillian, we were speaking before, and we discussed the form of communication that you had with Tom. Could you tell us about that, please?
Yes. 2 clicks of the finger was to turn somebody over, and 1 click was that you would move the person out of the room. So we always knew. Tom never had to speak, we just knew what he wanted.
Excellent.
2 clicks of the finger.
I like the 2 clicks. Now, you also mentioned something that I found fascinating about the babies. These were a very special thing in your life, I know. Would you like to tell us about the babies?
Yes, that was rather wonderful, really. Tom had a gift for being, well, women would come in and they would not be able to have babies. And I often used to suss out how many children have you got, and oh, we can't have any babies, oh, we don't know what to do. And I'd say, leave it to me, I'll talk to Tom. So I'd just say to him, this is a baby one, Tom. And, oh, righto. And he'd do whatever movements he needed, and he'd say to me, get them back in 7 days. So 7 days later they'd come back, and next time, no time at all, they'd be pregnant.
Wonderful.
So it was wonderful. There are a lot of babies around that you could say, I don't know whether they're called Thomas or Thomasina, but there's a lot of Toms. Well, I suppose you can't really say they're Tom's babies, but he helped make them.
We know what you mean.
Yes.
Now, if I can move from babies to horse floats.
Oh, yes, on a Saturday morning the horse floats would turn up, or the greyhounds. And Tom would go outside, and we were always a bit worried that a horse would kick him. But he was very careful, but it was wonderful to see. I mean, they would be as tall or nearly taller than Tom, and yet he'd put his hand up and he'd move along the back of the horse or down the leg, and next minute the owner would say, oh, that's fixed, it's moving better. And it was quite wonderful to see. And he'd work on the greyhounds, or any animals actually. He used to go out to farms and fix cows,
Yes,
bulls, all sorts of things.
So I can really feel that in speaking with you, you knew you were working with a genius
I
as
did.
well.
Oh, I
Yes.
did.
Yes.
Yes. Often we'd have a special Saturday morning clinic once a month where the children would come in their wheelchairs, and quite often very badly spastic or retarded children or polio victims. Tom would do wonders with them. Over a period of 2 years, I saw wonderful things happen with children. Children that would walk. You'd never ever think that they would be able to, and yet he'd get them moving.
Excellent.
Yes, it was great to see.
Gillian, thank you for spending
most
the
welcome.
time, and thank you for sharing all of those wonderful, precious moments.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ozzy, when you first met Mr. Bowen, what impressed you most about him?
His sincerity and straight to the point with what he said. When I first met him, it was at a National Health Conference in Adelaide in 1974, and I went over to this health conference with another practitioner from Victoria, and he introduced me to Tom, and I don't know why, but the words came out of my mouth when I was introduced, "I'd love to learn from you." And I really didn't know what he did. I knew he was
That's
a practitioner.
amazing.
It was amazing, and I sort of looked around to say, who pushed those words out of my mouth? But Bowen's shaking my hands, and he's looking at me so intently, and he's feeling my hands, and in that split of those few moments while he held onto my hand, he said, "Good, come down and I'll teach you." And the guy that was with me said, "I'll come too," because he wanted to get into Bowen's clinic. And Bowen says, "No, I'll only take one." And I was embarrassed, and Bowen said to me, I didn't know what to say, and Bowen said to me, "I'll call my secretary at lunchtime and let you know." This was at morning coffee time at a conference in Adelaide, and that's the most unusual story of my life, certainly the turning point of my life. Sure enough, straight after lunch, he had rung Reen, and he came back to me and he said, "Be down at my clinic in Geelong at 9 o'clock on Wednesday." This was Saturday in Adelaide, and I thought, how can I do that? And I thought, should I say yes or no? And I thought, well, for one day in someone else's clinic just to see what they do would be interesting. But that one day turned out to be 2.5 years, and then with the special days turned out to be 8 years.
That's incredible. So what do you think impressed him about you?
Well, he never told me, but later on he told me that it was my hands and the feeling that he found through me and my energy. I mean, he never said much, particularly in the early days, but later on he came up to visit and stay with us, he and his wife, Jessie, and they stayed with us, and I got to know him like a father, and he shared things with me then that I'm sure that he never shared with anyone else about his life and about the feeling that I had and the energy and the sensitivity. And he said that Elaine had that energy too, and
Elaine, you have a rare gift of energy evaluation. What did you experience when you first met Mr. Bowen?
It was a feeling of warmth, of heat, and healing. It was a touch of I can't believe that I'm being touched. I've never felt therapeutic hands like Mr. Bowen's ever in my entire life.
And that seems to be the word that everyone says. Everyone expresses some sort of form
Yes.
of acknowledgement of that gift when they do speak of Mr. Bowen's work. When Mr. Bowen asked you to document and teach the work, did you realise that you were sort of making history at that time?
I never thought it was for teaching purposes. He hadn't mentioned teaching at that time, and I thought this was so that I could learn it. You see, you imagine trying to learn from somebody who has no notes, no charts, nothing to follow, no book, no manual, and apparently having not learnt it and having had any previous study with any other hands-on modality as we know them today. And so all I was concerned about was getting it down, and everything that I wrote he edited. Every little diagram that I drew he either put a big mark straight through it and said that one's no good, or he corrected it or changed the arrows and said no, it's there, it's there, it's there. So this was just so that we would be able to use it. And of course, no, we did not realise that this was for posterity. We thought this was just so that we can use it.
Elaine, I'd like to ask you a little secret. When you travel the world, going through the airports, how do you arrive so fresh, with so much endurance and such an ability to just show nothing but energy to your students?
The travel side of it, Rob, we've become very seasoned to it. We've learned how to pack, we've learned how to accommodate, the different changes in time. We've learned to program our bodies to be able to cope with all of those things. And it's just really like you going to work from day to day.
The real crux of is what we're bringing. What excites us? Going to a different level course and hearing somebody say, let me tell you about this case. I had this guy, he'd been everywhere, he'd tried this, they'd tried that. It was the same story that I was getting when I was at Bowen's. When I was with Mr. Bowen, right at the very start, I said, we're not getting anywhere, I'm not learning much. He said, don't worry, son, just talk to the patients. And I didn't know what he meant, so I talked to the patients, and I learned from them that they had been to many, many people, and Bowen was the only one that gave them relief from their problems. Then he wouldn't see them perhaps for 6 months, 6 days, 6 years, any old time, and another problem, back they'd come. This is what we're finding right round the world, and this is what excites us. I mean, we're mad, really are, for travelling like we do, but we believe that we have a responsibility to bring this original work, which eventually he asked us to do, to take it to the world in the form that he showed to us, and that's what's giving the results. We've taught...
It certainly is.
There have been over 9,000 students worldwide that have taken at least the basic Bowen training, not necessarily from us, but with the help of 55 instructors around the world. And we're in about 8 or 9 countries now. We have associations like your Bowen Association, of which you're Vice President here in Australia. We have Bowen Associations in New Zealand, in Italy now, just formed, in South Africa, and of course in England and Austria, just through. Manfred Zainzinger has now formed a Bowen Association for the Academy in Austria. And Quebec, there is one in Quebec for the French-speaking Canadians, and this is what excites us. You go back and it's not the same story, but it's another miracle, another person. My family, my mother, my relative has been helped, and nothing else has helped them but Bowen. I mean, I think we're commissioned, if you like, by Bowen to go on till we drop dead to take this work to people. But of course we are trying to ease off on the work, and we have some brilliant instructors around the world, none the least being yourself, who are carrying on this work. It's just so wonderfully. People that get to learn to understand it. You do have to understand the philosophy of it. You have to understand the feeling. Bowen said that with our hands. You had that feeling with somebody else's hand. Maybe it's not there. Green too, of course, she was just a magnificent coach for us. She helped us. She knew the moves as well as Tom. We worked moves out with her. The frozen shoulder story. She worked that one out.
Would you like to tell us the frozen shoulder story?
Well, how did it get the name frozen shoulder? Everybody thinks, well, that's a calcified shoulder that can't move. And of course, this is the procedure that you would use to address such a shoulder. But a butcher used to come to Tom, carrying in the carcasses that were frozen from the trucks into the butcher shop over the same shoulder, and of course his shoulder aches. And he came to Tom, and from that, Reen helped Tom develop this procedure, which we all know now as the cup move or the frozen shoulder move, which is world famous. And that's where it got its original name, because this guy was carrying frozen carcasses.
Thank you very much for sharing all of these, perhaps fairly personal moments, but they are precious to us. Thank you.
Okay, what an exciting day we've had. Look, the stories that Reen has told us about Tom and the work has been just exceptional. And what Elaine and I and the Bowen Therapy Academy of Australia and Robin would like to do is just to say thank you very much, Reen. First of all, you were the one really that got Tom going and got Bowen going in the world. We know that. In appreciation, Reen, we just want to give you this little bunch of flowers.
A beautiful
just a little bunch of flowers for you, in sincere appreciation of all that you've done for us, for Bowen, and for the people of the world. And we also have a special one for Robin, our beautiful one.